Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Paul Harrold. I am an actor with the Philadelphia Shakespeare Theater, but you might also know me from my work in Twilight. I'm kidding, I was not in Twilight. I'm not famous. Hurts to say it. How about a reading? It's a good one. It's A Midsummer Night's Dream. Shakespeare wrote it. Ready? There was a law in the city of Athens, which gave to its citizens the power of compelling their daughters to marry whomever their fathers pleased. For upon a daughter's refusing to marry the man her father had chosen to be her husband, the father was empowered by this law to cause her to be put to death. But, as fathers do not often desire the deaths of their own daughters, even though they do happen to prove a little refractory, this law was seldom or never put in execution, though perhaps the young ladies of that city were not unfrequently threatened by their parents with the terrors of it. There was one instance, however, of an old man whose name was Aegeus, who actually did come before Theseus, at the time he was the reigning Duke of Athens, to complain that his daughter Hermia, whom he had commanded to marry Demetrius, a young man of a noble Athenian family, refused to obey him because she loved another young Athenian named Lysander. Aegeus demanded justice of Theseus and desired that this cruel law might be put in force against his daughter. Hermia pleaded in excuse for her disobedience, that Demetrius had formerly professed love for her dear friend Helena, and that Helena loved Demetrius a distraction. But this honorable reason, which Hermia gave for not obeying her father's command, moved not the stern Aegeus. Theseus, though a great and merciful prince, had no power to alter the laws of his country. Therefore he could only give Hermia 4 days to consider of it, and at the end of that time, if she still refused to marry Demetrius, she was to be put to death. When Hermia was dismissed from the presence of the Duke, she went to her lover Lysander and told him the peril she was in, and that she must either give him up and marry Demetrius or lose her life in 4 days. Lysander was in great affliction at hearing these evil tidings, but recollecting that he had an aunt who lived some distance from Athens, and that at the place where she lived the cruel law could not be put in force against Hermia, this law was not extending beyond the boundaries of the city, he proposed to Hermia that she should steal out of her father's house that night and go with him to his aunt's house where he would marry her. "I will meet you," said Lysander, "in the wood a few miles without the city, in that delightful wood where we have so often walked with Helena in the pleasant month of May." To this proposal Hermia joyfully agreed, and she told no one of her intended flight but her friend Helena. Helena, as maidens will do foolish things for love, very ungenerously resolved to go and tell this to Demetrius, though she could hope no benefit from betraying her friend's secret but the poor pleasure of following her faithless lover to the wood, for she well knew that Demetrius would go thither in pursuit of Hermia. The wood in which Lysander and Hermia proposed to meet was the favorite haunt of those little beings known by the name of the fairies. Oberon, the king, and Titania, the queen of the fairies, with all their tiny train of followers in this wood, held their midnight revels. Between this little king and queen of sprites there happened at this time a sad disagreement. They never met by moonlight in the shady walks of this pleasant wood, but they were quarreling till all their fairy elves would creep into acorn cups and hide themselves for fear. The cause of this unhappy disagreement was Titania's refusing to give Oberon a little changeling boy, whose mother had been Titania's friend, and upon her death the fairy queen stole the child from its nurse and brought him up in the woods. The night on which the lovers were to meet in this wood, as Titania was walking with some of her maids of honor, she met Oberon attended by his train of fairy courtiers. "I'll met by moonlight." "Proud Titania," said the fairy king. The queen replied, "What, jealous Oberon, is it you? Fairy, skip hence, I have forsworn his company." "Tarry, rash fairy," said Oberon. "Am I not thy lord? Why does Titania cross her Oberon? Give me your little changeling boy to be my page." "Set your heart at rest," answered the queen. "Your whole fairy kingdom buys not the boy of me." Then she left her lord in great anger. "Well, go your way," said Oberon. "Before the morning dawns, I will torment you for this injury." Oberon then sent for Puck, his chief favorite and privy councillor. Puck, or as he was sometimes called, Robin Goodfellow, was a shrewd and knavish sprite that used to play comical pranks in the neighboring villages, sometimes getting into the dairies and skimming the milk, sometimes plunging his light and airy form into the butter churn, and, while he was dancing his fantastic shape in the churn, in vain the dairymaid would labor to change her cream into butter. Nor had the village swains any better success. Whenever Puck chose to play his freaks in the brewing copper, the ale was sure to be spoiled. When a few good neighbors were met to drink some comfortable ale together, Puck would jump into the bowl of ale in the likeness of a roasted crab, and when some old goody was going to drink, he would bob against her lips and spill the ale all over her withered chin, and presently after, when the same old dame was gravely seating herself to tell the neighbors a sad and melancholy story, Puck would then slip her three-legged stool from under her, and down toppled the poor old woman, and then the old gossips would hold their sides and laugh at her, and swear they never wasted a merrier hour. "Come hither, Puck," said Oberon to this little merry wanderer of the night. "Fetch me the flower which maids call lore in idleness. The juice of that little purple flower laid on the eyelids of those who sleep will make them, when they awake, dote on the first thing they see. Some of the juice on that flower I will drop on the eyelids of my Titania when she is asleep, and the first thing she looks upon when she opens her eyes, she will fall in love with, even though it be a lion, or a bear, a meddling monkey, or a busy ape, and before I will take this charm from off her sight, which I will do with another charm I know of, I will make her give me that boy to be my page." Puck, who loved mischief to his heart, was highly diverted with this intended frolic of his master, and he ran to seek the flower. And while Oberon was waiting the return of Puck, he observed Demetrius and Helena enter the wood. He overheard Demetrius reproaching Helena for following him, and after many unkind words on his part, and gentle expostulations from Helena, reminding him of his former love and professions of his true faith to her, he left her, as he said, to the mercy of the wild beasts, and she ran after him as swiftly as she could. The fairy king, Oberon, who was always friendly to true lovers, felt great compassion for Helena, and perhaps, as Lysander said, they used to walk by moonlight in this pleasant wood, Oberon might have seen Helena in those happy times when she was beloved by Demetrius. However that might be, when Puck returned with this little purple flower, Oberon said to his favorite, "Take a part of this flower. There has been a sweet Athenian lady here who is in love with a disdainful youth, and if you find him sleeping, drop some of the love juice in his eyes, but contrive to do it when she is near him, that the first thing he sees when he awakes might be this despised lady. You will know the man by the Athenian garments which he wears." Puck promised to manage this matter very dexterously, and then Oberon went, unperceived by Titania, to her bower, where she was preparing to go for rest. Her fairy bower was a bank, where grew wild thyme, cowslips, and sweet violets under a canopy of woodbine, musk roses, and eglantine. Eglantine. There Titania always slept some part of the night, her coverlet in the enameled skin of a snake, which, though a small mantle, was wide enough to wrap a fairy in. He found Titania giving orders to her fairies, how they were to employ themselves while she slept. "Some of you," said her majesty, "must kill cankers in the musk rose buds, and some wage war with the bats for their leathern wings to make my small elves coats, and some of you keep watch that the clamorous owl that nightly hoots come not near me, but first sing me to sleep." Then they began to sing this song. They sang, "You spotted snakes with double tongue, thorny hedgehogs, be not seen. Newts and blind worms do no wrong, come not near our fairy queen. Philomel with melody, singing our sweet lullaby, lulla lulla lullaby, lulla lulla lullaby. Never harm, nor spell, nor charm, come our lovely lady nigh. So, good night with lullaby." When the fairies had sung their queen asleep with this pretty lullaby, they left her to perform the important services she had enjoined them. Oberon then softly drew near his Titania, and dropped some of the love juice on her eyelid, saying, "What thou seest when thou wake, do it for thy true love take." But to return to Hermia, who made her escape out of her father's house that night to avoid the death she was doomed to for refusing to marry Demetrius. When she entered the wood, she found her dear Lysander waiting for her to conduct her to his aunt's house. But before they had passed through the wood, Hermia was so much fatigued that Lysander, who was very careful of this dear lady, who had proved her affection for him even by hazarding her life for his sake, persuaded her to rest till morning on a bank of soft moss, and lying down himself on the ground at some little distance, soon they fell fast asleep. Here they were found by Puck, who who, seeing a handsome young man asleep, perceived that his clothes were made in the Athenian fashion, and that a pretty lady who was sleeping near him, concluded that this must be the Athenian maid and her disdainful lover whom Oberon had sent him to seek. And he naturally enough conjectured that, as they were alone together, she must be the first thing he would see when he awoke. So, without more ado, he proceeded to pour some of the juice of the little purple flower onto his eyes. But it so fell out that Helena came that way, and instead of Hermia, was the first object Lysander beheld when he opened his eyes. And strange to relate, so powerful was the love charm, all his love for Hermia vanished away, and Lysander fell in love with Helena. Had he first seen Hermia when he awoke, the blunder Puck committed would have been of no consequence, for he could not love the faithful lady too well. But for poor Lysander to be forced by a fairy love charm to forget his own true love Hermia, and to run after another lady and leave Hermia asleep quite alone in a wood at midnight was a sad chance indeed, Thus this misfortune happened. Helena, as had been before related, endeavored to keep pace with Demetrius when he ran away so rudely from her, but she could not continue this unequal race long. Helena soon lost sight of Demetrius, and when she was wandering about dejected and forlorn, she arrived at the place where Lysander was sleeping. "Ah," said she, "this is Lysander lying on the ground. Is he dead or asleep?" Then gently touching him, she said, "Good sir, if you are alive, awake!" Upon this, Lysander opened his eyes, and the love charm, beginning to work, immediately addressed her in terms of extravagant love and admiration, telling her she as much excelled Hermia in beauty as a dove does a raven, and that he would run through fire for her sweet sake, and many more such lover-like speeches. Helena, knowing Lysander was her friend Hermia's lover, and that he was solemnly engaged to marry her, was in the utmost rage when she heard herself addressed in this manner, for she thought, as well she might, that Lysander was making a jest of her. "Oh," said she, "why was I born to be mocked and scorned by everyone? Is it not enough, young man, that I can never get a sweet look or a kind word from Demetrius, but you, sir, must pretend in this disdainful manner to court me? I thought, Lysander, you were a lord of more true gentleness." Saying these words in great anger, she ran away, and Lysander followed her, quite forgetful of his own Hermia, who was still asleep. When Hermia awoke, she was in a sad fright at finding herself alone. She wandered about the wood, not knowing what was become of Lysander, or which way to go to seek for him. In the meantime, Demetrius, not being able to find Hermia and his rightful Lysander, and fatigued with his own fruitless search, was observed by Oberon fast asleep. Oberon had learnt by some questions that he had asked of Puck, that he had applied the love charm to the wrong person's eyes, and now, having found the person first intended, he touched the eyelids of the sleeping Demetrius with the love juice, and he instantly awoke, and the first thing he saw being Helena, he, as Lysander had done before, began to address love speeches to her. And just at that moment, Lysander, followed by Hermia, for though Puck's unlucky mistake it was now become Hermia's turn to run after her lover, made his appearance. And then Lysander and Demetrius, both speaking together, made their love clear to Helena, they being each under the influence of the same potent charm. The astonished Helena thought that Demetrius, Lysander, and her once dear friend Hermia were all in a plot together to make a jest of her. Hermia was as much surprised as Helena. She knew not why Lysander and Demetrius, who both before loved her, were now become the lovers of Helena, and to Hermia the matter seemed to be no jest. The ladies, who before had always been the dearest of friends, now fell to high words together. "Unkind Hermia," said Helena, "it is you who have set Lysander on to vex me with mock praises, and your other lover Demetrius, who also used to spurn me with his foot. Have you not bid him call me goddess, nymph, rare, precious, and celestial? He would not speak thus to me, whom he hates. If you did not set him on to make a jest of me, unkind Hermia, to join with men in scorning your poor friend. Have you forgot our school-day friendship? Often, Hermia, how often have we two sitting on one cushion, both singing one song with our needles working the same flower, both on the same sampler wrought, growing up together in fashion of a double cherry, scarcely seeming parted. Hermia, it is not friendly in you. It is not maidenly to join with men in scorning your poor friend." "I am amazed at your passionate words," said Hermia. "I scorn you not, it seems you scorn me." "I do," returned Hermia. "Persevere, counterfeit serious looks, and make mouths at me when I turn my back, then wink at each other, and hold this sweet jest up. If you had any pity, grace, or manners, you would not use me thus." While Helena and Hermia were speaking these angry words to each other, Demetrius and Lysander left them to fight together in the wood for the love of Helena. When they found the gentlemen had left them, they departed, and once more wandered weary in the wood in search of their lovers. As soon as they were gone, the fairy king, who with little Puck had been listening to their quarrels, said to him, "This is your negligence, Puck, or did you do this willingly?" "Believe me, King of Shadows," answered Puck, "it was a mistake. Did you not tell me that I should know this man by his Athenian garments? However, I am not sorry this happened, for I think their jangling makes excellent sport." "You heard," said Oberon, "that Demetrius and Lysander are gone to seek a convenient place to fight in. I command you to overhang the night with a thick fog and lead these quarrelsome lovers so astray in the dark that they shall not be kind to each other. Counterfeit each of their voices to the other, and with bitter taunts provoke them to follow you while they think it's their rival's tongue they hear. See you do this, till they are so weary they can go no farther, and when you find they are asleep, drop the juice of this other flower into Lysander's eyes, and when he wakes he will forget his new love for Helena and return to his old passion for Hermia. And then the two fair ladies may each be one happy with the man she loves, and they will think all has passed a vexatious dream. About this quickly, Puck, and I will go see what sweet love my Titania has found." Titania was still sleeping, and Oberon, seeing a clown near her who had lost his way in the wood and was likewise asleep, "This fellow," said he, "shall be my Titania's true love," and clapping an ass's head over the clown's, it seemed to fit him well, as if it had grown upon his own shoulders. Though Oberon fixed the ass's head on very gently, it awakened him, and rising up unconscious of what Oberon had done to him, he went toward the bower where the fairy queen slept. "An angel! Is that I see?" said Titania, opening her eyes, and the juice of the little purple flower began to take effect. "Are you as wise as you are beautiful?" "Why, mistress," said the foolish clown, "if I have wit enough to find the way out of this wood, I have enough to serve my turn." "Out of the wood I do not desire to go," said the enamored queen. "I am a spirit of no common rate. I love you. Go with me, and I will give you fairies to attend you." She then called 4 of her fairies. Their names were Peas Blossom, Cobweb, Moth, and Mustard Seed. "Attend," said the queen, "upon this sweet gentleman, hop in his walks, and gambol in his sight, feed him with grapes and apricots, and steal for him your honey bags from the bees. Come sit with me," she said to the clown, "and let me play your amiable hairy cheeks, my beautiful ass, and kiss your fair larged ears, my gentle joy." "Where is Peas Blossom?" said the ass-headed clown, not much regarding the fairy queen's courtship, but very proud of his new attendants. "Here, sir," said little Peas Blossom. "Scratch my head," said the clown. "Where is Cobweb?" "Here, sir," said Cobweb. "Good Mr. Cobweb," said the foolish clown, "kill me the red humble-bee on the top of that thistle yonder. And good Mr. Cobweb, bring me the honey bag. Do not fret yourselves too much in the action, Mr. Cobweb, and take good care of the honey bag. Break not. I should be sorry to have you overflown with the honey bag. Where is Mustard Seed?" "Here, sir," said Mustard Seed. "What's your will?" "Nothing," said the clown. "Good Mustard Seed, but to help Miss Peas Blossom to scratch, I must go to a barber, Mr. Mustard Seed, for methinks I am marvelous hairy about the face." "My sweet love," said the queen, what will you have to eat? I have a venturous fairy shall seek the squirrel's hoard and fetch you some new nuts." "I have rather a handful of dried peas," said the clown, who with his ass's head had got an ass's appetite. "But I pray you, let none of your people disturb me, for I have a mind to sleep." "Sleep then," said the queen, "and I will wind you in my arms. Oh, how I love you! Oh, how I dote upon you!" When the fairy king saw the clown sleeping in the arms of his queen, he advanced within her sight and reproached her with having lavished her favors upon an ass. This she could not deny, as the clown was then sleeping within her arms with his ass's head crowned by her flowers. When Oberon had teased her for some time, he demanded the changeling boy, which she, being ashamed of being discovered by her lord with her new favorite, did not dare refuse him. Oberon, having thus obtained the little boy he had so long wished for to be his page, took pity on the disgraceful situation which now, by his merry contrivance, he had brought his Titania, and threw some of the juice of the other flower into her eyes. And the fairy queen immediately recovered her senses, and wondered at her late dotage, saying how she now loathed the sight of this strange monster. Oberon likewise took the ass's head from off the clown, and left him to finish his nap with his own fool's head upon his shoulders. Oberon and his Titania now being perfectly reconciled, he related to her the history of the lovers and their midnight quarrels, and she agreed to go with him and see the end of their adventures. The fairy king and queen had found the lovers and their fair ladies at no great distance from each other, sleeping on a grass plot, for Puck, to make amends for his former mistake, had contrived with the utmost diligence to bring them all to the same spot, unknown to each other, and he had carefully removed the charm from the eyes of Lysander with the antidote that the fairy king gave to him. Hermia first awoke, and finding her lost Lysander asleep so near her, was looking at him and wondering at his strange inconstancy. Lysander, presently opening his eyes, and seeing his dear Hermia, recovered his reason, which the fairy charm had before clouded, and with his reason, his love for Hermia, and they began to talk over the adventures of the night, doubting if these things had really happened, or if they had both been dreaming the same bewildering dream. Helena and Demetrius were awake by this time, and a sweet sleep having quieted Helena's disturbed and angry spirits, she listened with delight to the professions of love which Demetrius still made to her, and which, to her surprise as well as pleasure, she began to perceive were sincere. These fair night-wandering ladies, now no longer rivals, became once more true friends. All the unkind words which had passed were forgiven, and they calmly consulted together what was best to be done in the present situation. It was soon agreed that, as Demetrius had given up his pretensions to Hermia, he should endeavor to prevail upon her father to revoke the cruel sentence of death that had been passed against her. Demetrius was preparing to return to Athens for this friendly purpose, when they were surprised by the sight of Aegeus, Hermia's father, who came to the wood in pursuit of his runaway daughter. When Aegeus understood that Demetrius would not now marry his daughter, he no longer opposed her marriage with Lysander, but gave his consent that they should be wedding on the 4th day from that time, being the same day on which Hermia had condemned to lose her life, and on that same day Helena joyfully agreed to marry her beloved and now faithful Demetrius. The fairy king and queen, who were invisible spectators of this reconciliation, and now saw the happy ending of the lovers' history, brought about through the good offices of Oberon, received so much pleasure that these kind spirits resolved to celebrate the approaching nuptials with sports and revels throughout their fairy kingdom. And now, if any are offended with the story of fairies and their pranks, as judging it incredible and strange, they have only to think that they have been asleep and dreaming, and that all these adventures were visions which they saw in their sleep. And I hope none of my readers will be so unreasonable as to be offended with a pretty, harmless Midsummer Night's Dream. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it.